Welcome to Offroad X Files, where the trail meets the unknown. I'm your host, Jimmy Toungate. I'm glad to be back after a short break in episodes. I was asked to be the master of ceremonies for a new conference in Randall, Washington called Sasquatch Beyond the Footprint. I had a great time and we're already planning next year's event, so stay tuned for updates. Tonight's show is a classic X-File. Two men go into the forest looking for Bigfoot and are later found deceased under very mysterious circumstances. This is followed by a potential government cover-up of the event. Welcome to Episode 6, The Skamania File, Mystery and the Gifford Pinchot. I recently wrote a blog on my website, Offroad X Files, and shared it on Facebook. It was about two hunters, Andrew Porter and Ian Stasko. They went missing on September 11th while hunting elk in the Colorado mountains. They were later found dead by search and rescue on September 18th. Their deaths were officially attributed to a lightning strike. News reports indicate the two men set out that evening to track a bull elk but got caught in an unexpected storm. With the ground saturated from rain, lightning struck and essentially electrified the area they were on. It's a tragic loss. 1 week later, the tragedy continued. Todd Shoulders, a 54-year-old man from Tennessee, was found deceased by first responders on the evening of September 26th. He was located within 10 miles of where Andrew and Ian perished. According to news reports, 911 dispatchers received a distress call from two members of Shoulders' hunting party at about 11:23 p.m. The callers reported they had begun CPR, but by the time search and rescue teams arrived, he was gone. My deepest condolences go out to all the loved ones of each family. The swift and clear resolution to both Colorado cases stands in stark contrast to another set of deaths I've been following closely, one with many questions and few answers. Here's what we know. On December 25, 2024, two men were reported missing by their families. Their last known location was in south central Washington in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest. According to the families, they may have been searching for Bigfoot. Search and rescue found their truck and searched the vicinity. The search lasted 3 days, and both men were found deceased in an area heavily covered by brush. Unlike the Colorado deaths, a cloud of secrecy continues to surround their case, and that makes some of us wonder, are state and county officials hiding something? The Skamania County Sheriff's Office stated that the men, ages 37 and 59, likely succumbed to exposure. Yet, nearly a year later, crucial details remain undisclosed. We don't know their names. No autopsy results have been released. Think about that. Within a very short amount of time, we know what happened to the men in Colorado and who they were. But what about the Bigfooters in Washington? Why the deafening silence? Here's what we've been able to piece together from every available source. The men were from the Portland, Oregon area. While their relationship is unknown, according to some reports, they may have been co-workers at FedEx. They parked their vehicle near an old, well-defined logging trail. But here's a critical point. Despite their interest in Bigfoot, no one in the research community seems to know who they were or how they knew about this specific location. Did they belong to any groups? We haven't heard anything. This is an area known to only a handful of researchers and local residents. So the question remains, how did these two men know to travel all the way from Portland to that specific area to look for Bigfoot? I've spent many hours digging for answers, scouring online records and obituaries for men matching their ages from the Portland area, but the lack of key information makes the search impossible. The official statement of exposure simply raises more questions than it answers. What exactly forced these men to cross a flooded creek in the dead of winter? My opinion is that something terrified them, forcing them to run for their lives. Bears would be hibernating, and a cougar is highly unlikely to attack two grown men, so what else is out there? A sealed coroner's report is key to the entire mystery. That report could provide critical clues. Were there other injuries? What do toxicology reports say about their adrenaline levels? A high concentration could indicate intense fear, a fight or flight response. I looked into submitting a Freedom of Information request to Skamania County in the state of Washington. However, I learned that the public cannot request autopsy reports or results for things like toxicology unless you belong to a government agency with need to know or are an immediate family member. So, folks, we need a whistleblower. Somebody who's seen the reports and is willing to come forward to get the details of what happened to these men. If you know someone who might have unknown details about this case, please reach out to me. Something extraordinary and terrifying happened in the Gifford Pinchot Forest that day, and the community, along with the families of these men, deserve answers. Let's consider a theory that could explain the sheer terror I believe these men experienced. It's a theory that stems directly from their purported interest in Bigfoot. What if after parking their truck and walking down that logging trail, they began actively trying to elicit a response? It's easy enough to do with a cell phone and maybe even a small Bluetooth speaker. They could have played a well-known recording like the Ohio Howl or the Sierra Sounds. But here's the truly terrifying part to consider. What if they inadvertently issued a direct threat? Folks, even after all these years, we don't know what these sounds mean. They're from an unknown language, from a creature with unknown intentions. What if they played sounds that said, "I'm here to take your food and I'm a badass Bigfoot"? We do know that this area has a reputation for aggressive Bigfoot behavior. This is something that I covered in my video, The Terror of Monster Mountain with Virgil Sampson. So what if a large rogue Bigfoot was nearby and perceived those vocalizations as an invasion or a threat? It would take immediate action. It may have bluff charged their position with terrifying vocalizations as it crashed through the brush, rushing towards them. While there are no credible reports of Bigfoot attacks on humans, what happened here is a complete mystery. Think about it. That sudden, visceral shock of confronting something massive, angry, and sprinting at them would bypass all rational thought. What if the creature was positioned between them and their truck? The creek would become their only escape, and they would run panicked straight for the water and cross it. That primal, blinding terror would be the force that led them into the creek and ultimately led to the tragic final consequence the sheriff called exposure. Since official channels are not forthcoming with details about this case, we wanted to get a better understanding of what this encounter might have looked like at the location. I recently visited the site with Salish Sasquatch. We were guided by our friend and local resident, Virgil Sampson. Virgil is from the area and has deep ties to the community. That expedition culminated in a video by Salish Sasquatch called "Why Did They Split Up?" I would encourage you to check out that video and all their other great videos about Bigfoot evidence and encounters. But that trip made quite an impression on me. It gave me a burning desire to find answers and expose the truth about what happened that day in the Gifford Pinchot. Joining me now to continue this discussion is Virgil Sampson, a man whose life is defined by the Washington wilderness. Virgil grew up in Carson, Washington, has spent his whole life hunting deer and elk in the Gifford Pinchot. He works professionally as a drift boat fishing guide on the Klickitat River. Not only is Virgil a dedicated outdoorsman, but he also brings a background of serious discipline, having served 7 years in the Army Infantry as a weapons specialist, where he earned the sought-after Expert Infantry Badge. He takes all that experience and sharp knowledge of the terrain and pours it into Bigfoot research. He's a guy I really love to go on expeditions with because not only is he a great cook, funny as hell, and an all-around great guy, but he has a vast knowledge of the area. Virgil, welcome to Offroad X Files.
Hey, Jimmy. Thanks for inviting me on the show tonight.
Of course, Virgil. You're the one guy that has a lot of insight into this, and I hope that we'll dig up some additional answers and maybe shed some light on what we've already discussed. So, Virgil, how did you first hear about the missing men last December?
I heard that on national, on the TV. It went national.
Yeah.
On that. So that's how I first heard about that.
Yeah, and same thing for me. Yeah. So it was Christmas Day. We started hearing that these guys have been reported missing on national news. Did you hear anything locally? Did people start talking about it right away?
Oh, yeah. Yes. My friend on my SAR team called me and told me about that. And we were both kind of baffled. So
had he already, at that point, had he already been kind of dispatched to the area to start searching?
He was.
Okay.
He was. Yep. They yeah, he was just getting back off that. So it took about 2 days before it was actually released. So I kind of heard about that from him before it was actually released, and then all of a sudden it made national news, and I was like, wow, that's kind of bizarre, but okay.
So do you think it made national news because they were purported to be Bigfooters? Do you think that was kind of the angle? Yeah, I do too.
I do too. Absolutely. If it had nothing to do with Bigfoot, we would have never heard anything about it, because there's several people that's missing in that area. You know, mushroom hunters, hikers.
Remind me to ask you about that. That's definitely one of the questions I want to talk to you about. But like, as a long-term resident, a long-time local resident, how well did you know that particular area of the Gifford Pinchot where the men went missing? Like, is it a well-known place to go hike? Had you been to that specific area? If so, like, what led you there?
Well, growing up, it's a big valley in there. That's a winter elk calving ground in there. So growing up, my grandpa, my dad, we would climb up in that area, but I've known this area since I was just a little kid. And I've had, they knew natives and they were good friends with them. But they told us to stay out of that valley. You have to understand one thing about this valley. When you start into this thing, it makes a Y. Okay. As you get up in there, one part of it goes to the left and one goes to the right. And there's another campground up in there, but there's a big rim. I mean, you're going from 2,000 feet, and this rim that goes around, it goes up to around 5,000 feet. I mean, it's a steep, it's rugged, it's brutal in there. You really don't want to be up in the upper end of this stuff. But if you go off to the right-hand side, and there's a campground up in there, you really don't want to go up above that campground, because the natives used to tell us, stay out of there. Actually, they called it Skookum Valley to start with. I've never seen a native in there. I've only seen one native in there, and that was Jonathan Brown. He's the only native I've ever seen in that valley. They won't go in there. But off to the left-hand side, that's the one where the two guys came up missing at. It was off that left-hand fork.
So on the right side, where we kind of frequent, that area that goes up, that's really rugged, that leads up to Monster Mountain, correct?
It does. Okay. Yep. There's a road that you can take just before you get to the campground. You can go left, and it makes about a 10-mile loop up, and it goes up on top of the rim, and it comes back down below the campground. And that's fairly safe in there. But I wouldn't be going up above that campground at night. I would just stay out there. I won't go up there at night.
We went up there. We went up there and went into a little meadow, and I won't say what was in there because it could potentially give it away, but we went into that meadow with it was me, you, Sarah, and Janice, I think. And I'm like, yeah, I get the heebie-jeebies in here. There's a really bad feeling right here, and I didn't want to stay.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I don't even like being up in there myself. It makes me nervous being in there. So
it's a winter elk calving ground area. So, but it's not a place that you would typically go hiking.
Yes, there is 2 trails in there. One goes up to one mountain, and there's another one. If you go further up, a couple miles up, there's another trail that goes up to another mountain, and it makes about a 6-mile loop in there. But I've never done it, and I ain't gonna do it either. So that's why they call that Monster Mountain, because there's so many sightings in that area.
So were the two guys in that area where the hiking trails were, or were they completely in a different area? I'm trying to establish, like, could they have been there to go hiking?
No, they weren't there to go hiking because they were on the left-hand side of this valley. The one I'm talking about with the trails on it, that's on the right-hand side when you go up into the campground there. So they were in a completely separate valley. It's one big valley, but they were on the left side of this entire valley. So, so they weren't in there to be hiking. There was no hiking trails in the area that they were in. They were off into the left-hand side of this entire valley. Well, like I said, it forks. There's two forks go off this big valley, and they were on the left side, and there was no hiking trails in there. They were not hiking. Absolutely not.
So the sheriff's report mentioned they parked near an old logging trail with easy access in and out of the creek area. And we went to that area, and I saw, like, it's pretty easy getting in and out of there. For the listeners, can you describe the creek? Was it safe to cross that late in December? Like, what were the conditions like, Virgil?
Okay, so the conditions. Okay, I'll back up a little bit.
Okay.
Where they parked, it was a little intersection there. It went on up the mountain, or you could take a left. And this was a really old logging road. I mean, it's so old that there's trees and stuff growing up in it. Where they parked and got out, the creek is about 80 yards from where they got out of their vehicle. And then it was in December 24th. It had rained for about 2 weeks straight. And the creek was about flood stage level. So this creek was rolling, man. It was running pretty good. It would have been about waist deep or so. And they crossed this at that point. So something had to happen between their vehicle and that creek.
Yeah.
Because why would you cross a creek when you're not even dressed for winter?
Right.
And why not run back to your truck? Something happened, dude. Something went really, really wrong.
So reports were that they were wearing sweatpants, tennis shoes. They were not dressed to be out crossing creeks, bushwhacking through heavy brush. There's like that one little berm there, but that's like really easy to navigate across. I also think something happened to push them to not want to cross that creek, but to have to cross that creek. And earlier in the program, I alluded to that, like maybe it's something we had talked about when we were out there. Maybe they were call blasting or something else. Do you have any other theories or ideas as to maybe what could have driven them across that creek naturally?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand. Everybody that I know, everybody that knows that area, even my son-in-law was like, this is BS. These guys, like you said, they were wearing tennis shoes, they were wearing sweatpants, they were not dressed for the wintertime. Something forced them. Something happened. I'm speculating, just something happened to where they ran across that creek, and once they got wet, you can kind of see where this is heading at this point. I mean, they ran across there, and you were there. I showed you the area.
Right.
I mean, this does not make any sense at all. And for the sheriff's department to come out and say they died of exposure, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, people can die from exposure from the sun in the desert. People can die from exposure from rain, from the cold in the Antarctic. It's like exposure. It's just a generic answer for a death that they can't explain. And there's something going on with this whole thing.
So
It just doesn't make any sense.
I agree. And that leads me to another question, Virgil, and that's, I don't live in Skamania County, but you do. Is it common for law enforcement officials, coroners, etc.? Obviously people go missing there, people die. Is it common for them to just say, oh, they died from exposure and not release any names or anything? Or is this very different from normal?
Well, to me, this is very different from normal. And I will compare this to those two guys that passed away in Colorado.
Yeah.
That was such a tragedy. But they were listed as missing, but they found them. And then all of a sudden, we know their names. We know what they died from, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But these guys, we don't know who they were. We have, ideas that they worked for FedEx. One was 59, one was 37.
Yeah.
We don't know if they're related. Who knows? This whole thing. And then the Coast Guard showed up, which I've never even, maybe that's normal, but I've never heard of that before. So, and the Coast Guard was 120 miles away in Astoria.
So they flew a chopper
I don't know.
to, the bodies had already been recovered at that point. And I'm guessing maybe where they back up, where we parked on the road, and then like a chopper couldn't land there, they'd have to lower a basket.
Yeah, and that's what they did. They lowered a guy down, and they put him in the basket, raised him up, and then they got him, and they took off. So that's, I don't know. This whole thing is just...
Yeah. Maybe somebody from the Coast Guard that's listening, or if you know somebody in the Coast Guard that is involved in these type of operations, if you could put us in touch with them to answer that question. Like, is this standard operating procedure to fly 120 miles to recover somebody when there's no emergency? Or could this have been done, by ground ambulance or something? It's a fair question.
So we yeah, that's a very fair question. I've gotten comments that said, hey, this is very normal for the Coast Guard to do this on the coastal range. And I'm like, we're not on the coastal range. We're 120 miles inland. What? I don't know. Yeah. I've only seen a Coast Guard helicopter twice in my entire life this far in. And
gotcha.
I don't know. Maybe it is standard. And I was told that they were looking for the people with FLIR, but I don't know. This whole thing, nothing makes sense, man.
Right.
Nothing.
So let me ask you another question.
Sure.
We know reportedly they were looking for Bigfoot. In your experience as a local, is that specific spot, that left-hand side or the right-hand side, is it well known within the Bigfoot community of researchers or investigators, or is it more of like a quiet, unpublicized place that a few know about?
Well, it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
When I was growing up as a kid, and I got my hunter safety card at 10 years old, and we started hunting, my dad and grandpa knew a lot of the natives of the area, and they sent us down one day, and they told us, don't go in this valley, stay out of it. And they called it Skookum Valley in there. And they told us about the hairy man, really. And this was back in the mid 70s, 75, 70, no, just before the 80s, 68. Just about 1980, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And they set us all down. They talked to us, and they told us, you guys don't go in here. You guys stay out of this area. And we never really did hunt that area. But if we did hunt it, we hunted below the campground. So we never went up in the valley, because they told us that they would park the elders up above the campground, and it gets gnarly in there. This place it's no country for young men in there. I'm telling you. I walked off that one time in my teens, and I said I'll never do that again. It is rough. It's straight up and down. It's rough. It turns into a swamp up in this valley.
Wow.
You know, it's bad. And so the natives told us that they park them in there, the elders in there. They can't make it back up the mountain, you know, after, in the springtime.
Right.
So we just kind of kept it at that and just never really went up in there, just stayed out of there. And I've had several friends that have had problems up in there. So yeah, it's a wild place, man.
So when we visited the site together and we walked down the creek where they crossed, and you kind of pointed out the path that they took. Once they crossed, they split up, right? So one went right, one went left. So that's like already has me wondering, why did they split up? Why didn't they stay together? If they were out there and, really not to hike, they weren't dressed for hiking, for bushwhacking in that area. And suddenly they're crossing a creek, and being cold. I mean, it's cold outside and they're wet. Why keep moving away from your vehicle and heading deeper and deeper into brush? Right.
So I've thought about that too. Something forced these guys to go away from their vehicle. They had to have been, well, from their vehicle to that creek was about 80 yards. So they had to be somewhere in that. And then something forced them to go across that creek in a hurry. I would think so. I mean, why wouldn't you go back to your truck? Something happened. And I want to just kind of explain this to the listeners. When they crossed that creek, that road is washed out right there. So they cross the creek, and then that road goes on up the hill there. But it's an old logging road. I mean, there's trees growing up in it. It's an old oldie. So they cut off of the road and kind of went like northwest. They were kind of heading west, and they kind of turned and went northwest, and they ran into some deadfall, or blow. I think it was blow down myself. And for the listeners out there, blow down up in here, we have 80, 90 mile an hour storms sometimes that come in here with wind, and it blows these sections down, and it looks like pixie sticks. Okay.
Yeah.
So they crossed this blowdown area that was so bad. And I need to kind of explain this too. And I've done this before, but I don't do it anymore. But you either have to go under it, get up on top of it, you got to crawl over it, go around it, or turn around and go the other way. That's your only other options. It's bad. And this stuff can be 8 to 10 feet tall, And just like I said, it looks like a bunch of pixie sticks just laying there, and you got to go through it. Well, they went through that. Why they went through that? Something tells me that they were scared. They were running for their lives at this point. I think they were moving. I don't think they were messing around. So once they got through that, they came up to a base of a ridge, and this ridge is not small. This is like pretty good sized ridge. I mean, it's pretty much straight up and down. So they went up to the top of that, and for some reason, when they got to the top, they separated. Why they did this, I have no idea. I mean, there's more strength in numbers myself, than what I think. And then, so one went north up the ridge, and one went south, and they were found about 700 feet apart. They both had come down the ridge like they were trying to get back to the vehicle, and they were found at the base of the hill right there. But it was extremely brushy. I mean, maybe people on the East Coast or something or lives in this area knows what I'm talking about. The Gifford It gets 107 inches, 107 to 114 inches of rain a year. It's a jungle. And you can get so tangled up in this stuff that I've had to take my knife out and cut my way out before elk hunting. So that's how brushy this is. And I don't know, the whole thing just
doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense to me or anybody else.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard this story, I said, this is BS. And that's what my son-in-law said, the same thing, and everybody I know, they said the same thing. No, this isn't what happened.
Humans always take the path of least resistance.
Right.
Like when we walk down that logging trail down towards the creek, there's that little berm of dirt. There's a path around the side of it. I went that way. It was least resistance. Right. So why go through all that effort to cross a flooded creek, bushwhack your way without having any tools to bushwhack through that brush, get to the big deadfall, and have to climb over or under that, and then up a ridge, split up and keep going? In your opinion, like, what could have been out there in that part of the Gifford Pinchot in late December that would have been terrifying enough to force those men to run for their lives and cross that flooded creek? Ultimately, like, what do you think it was?
Well, I'm just speculating, but the only thing I can tell you is I think they went looking for Bigfoot, and I think they found one pretty quick. Whatever they were doing, it forced them to move away from their vehicle. So
we know it happened within 80 yards.
Yep,
like,
within 80 yards of their vehicle, something happened.
Yes.
Something scared them so bad that they ran across that creek and headed up the other side. And then I think they were trying to get away from it. And for some reason, they split up and they were trying to get back to their vehicle. And yeah, and they were found about 2 miles away from their vehicle. So
I said at the kind of towards the beginning of the show that bears would be hibernating at that time.
Right.
It's theoretically possible one could have been out and about even so. That's not unheard of.
Yeah, but black bears, those things run from you.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about a bear. The last bear I seen, which is about 2 weeks ago, was oh yeah. As soon as they see you, they just take off and run, and I don't care about no freaking bear.
So what I want to do, though, is I want to try to eliminate the usual suspects. So the next thing on my list is a cougar. So what if they somehow got in between a cougar and her kits? Is it like even that time of year where she would have little ones with her?
No.
Would a cougar have gone after two men?
No. And even if they did, a cougar? Oh, heck no.
Okay.
No, that is just absolutely ludicrous to even think of something like that. That's for city folks. Yeah.
Are there any other critters out there that could have caused those men to run?
There's nothing in that area. For all of us locals that's been in there that know about this place, I'm telling you, something happened. Something went really, really sideways. Something went extremely wrong at that point. Yeah. So in
thinking about it, okay, so I floated the theory that maybe they were making vocalizations. Since we don't know what they were found with, because those reports are sealed, like what belongings they had, other than they were dressed in like sweatpants and tennis shoes. We don't know if they had backpacks or any other kind of gear. Tree knocks probably wouldn't elicit an aggressive response. Normally, whenever a tree knock happens, maybe you'll get one back, and maybe you'll get vocalizations. That's usually like the extent of it. Is there anything else that they could have been doing beyond, like maybe doing a vocalization that caused an aggressive response that you can think of that could have happened? Or did they just like get out of their vehicle, they're walking towards the creek, and suddenly one steps out into the path with them, and they come face to face, with a 9-foot tall, hairy man. I mean, you and I've talked, and you've said that in that area there's a meaning, and we know what happened with your bear dog. I've never really heard of any credible reports of Bigfoot attacking anybody, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. They're unknown creatures with unknown intentions. We don't know what they're capable of or what they may have done in the past that maybe we're not aware of. Do you have any other theories about what could have happened in that 80 yards?
Well, the only thing that I can think of, and I heard a story from 2 different people, that 2 researchers that are well known went into this area and they were playing it was either the Sierra Sounds or the Ohio Howls. I don't remember which one now, but after they played that, they had 2 of them coming off the valley side down each side of there, and they said they were coming fast and they were coming hard, and they got scared and got in their truck and left. So
it's interesting. I mentioned both of those earlier in the show as being potential. I mean, they're probably the most well-known vocalizations out there, or sounds or recordings. But it's interesting that they were doing that kind of that same thing and elicited an aggressive response. Yeah,
because that's why I'm so against howling and not wood knocking and all that stuff, because you don't know what you're saying. You have no idea.
Exactly.
And when people start doing that around me, I walk away. I'm like, you guys are on your own. I'm out, man, because I'm not messing with this.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
So our friend Tyler Kennedy told me a story. It was one of his encounters. I think it was around Mount Hood. It was back before he got his 4Runner, and he had gone out into the forest. He's by himself. It's at night after work. And he gets out and he parks in this spot, and he rolls down all the windows and turns the volume up as loud as it'll go in his car and starts playing the Sierra Sounds. And he said within a very short amount of time, something rushed out of the forest and hit his car and rocked it. It scared the crap out of him. And that was a direct result of playing the Sierra Sound. So, I know people do it all the time, but, I would really caution against it. We have no idea what those sounds mean or what could happen if you play them in that kind of scenario. So, if you feel like you want to, go ahead, but I would urge caution.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't recommend doing that at all, because you'd have no idea what that means. Nobody does. So, yeah, that's why I refrain against anybody doing that or anybody around me. It's like, don't do that, or I'm leaving. I'm not going to mess with this, man. It's one thing to go out and look for them and have wood knocks and leave apples and stuff, gifting or whatever you want to do, but you start playing those sounds, you have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah. So back at the beginning of the interview, you had alluded to missing people, mushroom hunters, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was going to ask you this question, if you're aware of other missing people in that area or unexplained deaths in that region of Skamania County, or anywhere around there, not just in that bowl, but anywhere in that area.
Yes. Yeah, there's quite a few missing people in that area. From that valley, about 20 miles north, and I'm not going to tell anybody this location, but
right.
The PCT goes through there, and there's several, there's a lot of people missing in that area. It's about 20 miles north of this valley. It's up on the other side of it. But even in this valley, there's people that go in there mushroom hunting and stuff that came up missing. So, I'm not really sure how to tell you this without saying areas and stuff,
right.
Because I don't want people to go in there. I'm just like, I've got so much to tell you, but it's like, I can't tell you because then I don't want people going up in there, because once you tell them the area, it's like people, they're like, oh, we have to go there. We got to see if Bigfoot's in there. It's like, no, don't go in there. Just stay out, man. Just leave them alone. They'll leave you alone. You have your camping areas. They won't bother you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But people got to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until they come up missing. So, yeah, there's a lot I want to tell you, and I'm sorry I can't tell you, Jimmy,
right,
or the people or your listeners. But I can't tell you the areas. Just if you're not from here, you don't know the area, stay out.
Right.
So that's as much as I can tell you about that. But yeah, there's a lot of people missing in that area. So
I want to look into some statistics of that and see what I can find out. I've also reached out to a reporter that I know in Portland, a TV reporter, and
sure,
I'm trying to get him interested in this story to see if he can help push to find out more about the actual, like toxicology reports and things like that that could have very instrumental information in them. But like, what it all comes down to is this was a horrible tragedy that happened to two men and their families. They lost, somebody that they loved, and ultimately, my goal, and I think all of our goal, is to make sure that they're honored and remembered in the right way, not as a couple of wackadoodles that went out hunting a mythical creature, but there were human beings who had an interest, and unfortunately, something happened and they lost their lives. But I think it's also kind of an important time to think about safety. So when you go out into these remote locations, I know, like, I always have a Garmin InReach Mini 2 with an SOS button, and I have an insurance plan, so if something happens, I can press that button.
Right.
If something 9 feet or 10 feet tall and hairy is chasing me and I think is fixing to kill me, I'm probably not going to think about that button, at least not initially, but maybe, who knows? Maybe I could get to a space where I could press it. But like, what other things should people carry with them to be safe? So if they get in a situation where, it's wintertime, they have to cross that creek, they have to go through brush, what could they do, Virgil, to help them survive?
Well, first of all, be dressed for the situation. Yeah, have radios on you. Yeah, I don't carry one, a location beacon.
Mm-hmm.
I probably should, but I don't, because I just know that area so much. And then be with more people. Don't be out there by yourself.
Right.
Don't be with an inexperienced person. Always go. When I go out, I'm always with somebody that knows the area too. We know where we're going. We've already discussed our route. We know everything that we're going to do. It's just not show up in the area and then just start bushwhacking. Like
right.
you said, it's like there is a plan here. Yeah, I just say at least don't go alone. I used to go alone a lot when I was younger, in my 20s. And I don't do that anymore. And I used to go out at night too. I would start at like midnight and walk up 6 miles up into these valleys and stuff in the dark. But I don't do that no more. No.
I would also say trust your gut. Like,
yep.
When we went out to that location, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 of us. And
right.
At least 4 of us were armed. And we got out of the truck, and I immediately felt this gloominess, like a foreboding.
Right.
And maybe it's because I knew, like these 2 guys died in that area. That could definitely have something to do with it. But if you're out in an area and you get that gut feeling that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be here, turn yourself around and leave. Go somewhere else.
No, absolutely.
Trust that feeling.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and I've been in situations up there to where I can take you to a spot and I can show you this to where at high noon in a clear day, middle of summer, you can walk into these trees. It's almost pitch black. There's no, it's like triple canopy type stuff.
Wow.
Where it's completely dark and you don't know what. Yeah, it's a weird area, man. And I walked in there a little bit and I turned around and came back out. I'm like, there's something, no, you just can't see. As soon as you walk into that, it's dark in the middle of the day. So it's like, and there's trails going through there. It's like, what made these trails? So
yeah,
I don't know, man, but I stay out of there. I don't go in there at all. I can take you in there. I can show you where to go if you want to go.
Yeah, I'll go check it out with you. Well, Virgil,
all right.
We may never get the answers we're looking for about who the two men in the Gifford Pinchot were and what happened to them, but it's not going to stop us from asking and for pushing for answers. Are county officials hiding something from us? I'll let you decide, but I think there's more to the story and it deserves to be told so these men can be honored and remembered. Everybody deserves that. Listeners, what do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to know. Thank you for joining Virgil and I in this episode of Offroad X Files. Don't forget to like, comment, rate, and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, keep looking, keep exploring, and remember, out there in the darkness between the trees are the questions and the answers.